Welcome to Primetime Picks on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. Sitting alongside me is Corey Sparks, the resident fantasy expert. In the office, I'm Charlie Dern. This week we've got our lessons learned, some Packers props talk, and our fantasy corner for Week 13 of the NFL, and then we'll dive into our picks. Corey, it's been a few weeks since we last talked on this show. We didn't have a Thanksgiving episode, but last week we saw the Packers take down the Lions on Turkey Day. That was a big deal for me.
Oh, yeah.
The Broncos are continuing to make a little bit of a run here, and your Bears even got a win. It was a great Week 12.
Weird things going around right now. The NFL truly just proving that anything can happen in the last week or two. So, yeah, Packers are on the upswing. We'll have a whole segment dedicated to them and the different trends we're seeing there. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, let's start with a little recap of the week before. So Week 12 of the NFL and what we learned. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll get this out of the way. I'm cursed. I am actually cursed. I'm going to say his name once, just for the sake of reminding all of you how cursed I am.
You hate him.
Yeah, Tony Pollard has consecutive weeks with a touchdown since I dropped him. And by drop him, I mean not just in the show, in my personal life. I traded that man away for Gus Edwards, straight up. Gus Edwards has been fine. Yeah, Pollard went, 2.5 months without a touchdown, despite so many analytics saying he should have had them. Red zone rushes inside the 5, overall touches, pass-catching involvement. Everything you'd want in a running back that would make them top 5, top 10. Tony Pollard was running back 19 when I dropped him in PPR, and I told all of you to get rid of him. Yeah, he's doing great now. He's thriving in post-Corey land, so I went against my own rule. When you have analytics like red zone touches, I mean, eventually someone's going to go back to the mean. Tony Pollard has done just that at just the right time. So I'm staying true to my word. That's the last time I'll say his name, and he's not going to be on any list. I'm not giving this guy the time of day. Yeah, they decided to feed him.
Dropping him's a little extreme. I feel like I would have still held on to him and at least stashed him on my bench, but hey, neither here nor there at this point. I'd say for me, it was the Packers game that was my biggest takeaway. The Packers actually are turning this boat around, and I'm not really sure what I expected. I definitely didn't think that we would come out that hot against the Lions. We had been trending that direction, and I thought the +7 that we had was actually like a good play. I didn't think we'd win the game outright.
Right.
Especially not. It felt like it was the Lions' time to finally win one on Thanksgiving. I think that was their 7th straight loss on Thanksgiving, something like that. And, yeah, the Packers came out hot, and we were up like 21-3 or something after the first quarter. Like
Huge lead, yeah.
that was great. And we were getting turnovers with Jared Goff. I thought that was going to ruin my Thanksgiving, and it was the opposite. It made my Thanksgiving.
0-13 with a waxing gibbous on Thanksgiving
Yeah,
or something
that's
like
right.
that. That's a great
right.
stat, so that continues as well.
Yeah, the moon played a major part in that game. Yep. The other things that I had the Jags winning tough games. They played the Texans and they won 24-21, I believe, and that game came down to the wire. And C.J. Stroud, as a rookie, is already a quarterback that I didn't have fun playing against in that one. I had the Jags excessively in that game. I was all over the Jags, and pretty early on I realized like betting against C.J. Stroud is a bad idea because he's always going to keep them in games. And the Jags being able to find a way to still win those games, it showed me their maturity as a team and the direction they're heading in. Now they're sitting at 8-3 with one of the best 3 records in the AFC. So my Jags are looking good.
Yeah.
Speaking of my teams, the Jags are one of them, and then my Cowboys. Big on the Cowboys this year. I've talked about it on end. They're just bullies. They are. That's what they are. They've shown that they haven't been able to beat the really good teams. The Niners was a bad loss. They lost to the Eagles. But when they play a team that's bad like the Commanders last week, all they do is just beat down on them.
Blow them out. This team does not know how to play a close game.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I had the Commanders plus the 14 points, and that was dead pretty quickly because the Cowboys just run away with those games. And I'm not really sure what to think about the Cowboys right now. I really like them, and I think they're going to, win this week, win big this week. But then next week they play the Eagles after the Eagles have gone through this gauntlet of playing Buffalo, San Fran, and then Dallas again. It'll be tough. I think that game for the Cowboys is going to mean a lot more than it will for the Eagles. It's going to be hard because there's a chance that they'll have a pretty similar record going into that game if the Niners can beat the Eagles. So that'll be a big game for the NFC East in that division. Let's talk Packers props.
All right.
So last week, obviously Jordan Love did really well. He had a couple passing touchdowns. I'm pretty sure his completions and his attempts went over. Christian Watson looked good again. Romeo Doubs, I can't remember specifically, but I don't think he did very much. It seems like Romeo Doubs tends to do a disappearing act where I don't know if it's LaFleur or if it's Love, but he's not getting targeted as much as he should be, at least in my opinion, because he is a guy that he will find a way to get open. When I was at the Packers game against the Lions, that was early in the year. That was the Thursday night game. It felt like they were searching for Romeo Doubs constantly, and he was the only one getting open, and that's who I kind of think he is. So that's why I like him this week. One of the props that I have is Romeo Doubs over the 3.5 receptions. That's at even money.
Okay.
And I think that that's going to be the play here because, well, A.J. Dillon's on the injury report along with every other Packers running back. We know that Aaron Jones is going to continue to miss some time. That game's on Sunday Night Football, and I think that they're going to have to, the Packers, in order to keep with this Chiefs defense that's actually stronger than people would make them out to be, I think they're going to have to find Romeo Doubs. I think it might be a little frustrating watching this happen because I think it's going to be a lot of those screen passes that don't work. They don't work.
Dink and dunk. Oh, you're telling me. I'm a Bears fan.
Yeah, right.
Watched the Vikings game a couple days ago. Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah, Getsy loves those screen passes.
Behind
so does
the line
Matt
of
LaFleur.
scrimmage,
Yeah, he came from that offense, so it makes sense. And the Packers screen passes don't really work. I think Romeo Doubs is going to get over this 3.5 receptions at even odds. What do you have?
I have Jordan Love over 230.5 passing yards. That's the line as I saw it. It's going to fluctuate a little bit, of course. I'm kind of going to piggyback off the point you made to start things off. The Chiefs' defense, better than people want to make it out to be, but the offense, regardless of the weather, the Chiefs are used to playing in the cold as well. The Packers are going to have to get into an arms race. Everybody who circles that date against now the defending Super Bowl champs understands to beat this team, we have to put up points. We cannot get in an ugly game unless we get the torrential downpour that was the Denver and Kansas City game where that got a little ugly. I don't think the weather's supposed to be too crazy outside of it being cold. Running back room, as you brought up, as thin as it's ever been. Aaron Jones on and off the injury report. A.J. Dillon listed as questionable. We mentioned this before we turned the mics on. I don't think they have a choice. He has to play. And Emmanuel Wilson goes down against the Chargers. So, yeah, Love has blown this mark specifically out of the water in the last 3 games, referring to the 230.5 passing yards. He's kicked off with over 260 yards through the air in each of the last 3 weeks. We're seeing more volume through the air as well. The Packers look comfortable with him. Last 3 games, we've seen 40 passing attempts again. 32 last week, but if you watch that game, you know why. It was a blowout from the start, and they tried to chew clock a little bit at the end there. So really a big fan of just this passing offense in general right now, specifically in this Chiefs game.
One that I wanted to run by you is Jordan Love longest completion under 35.5 yards. So this goes along the lines of sort of what we're talking about with these screen passes and really not playing for the deep game. I think that if this goes over 35.5, it'll be, I don't want to use the words lucky, but it'll be a deep ball to Christian Watson that he has to go up and make a play, which he did do last week, but he hasn't really done in his career.
Contested, yep.
And Dontavian Wicks is supposed to play. He's another guy that can make a deep ball happen, but I don't know. I don't think 35.5 sounds right, unless like Dobbs or somebody turns a screen pass into something crazy.
You need some broken tackles or some blocks on the field. Yeah, asking for my opinion on this, I like the pick, to be honest, way under. We just talked about that game script, right? I mean, this team has to throw it a lot to an extent because of the lack of availability behind the quarterback and in the backfield. But in the same notion, when you have a team that's shallow in the backfield, I've seen it with the Bears, you have to find other ways to run the ball. And the Packers' runs are going to be these little screens, and that's going to eat up a lot of plays. I don't think Love looks down the field a whole lot. And again, we talk about this Chiefs defense. They know how to put a lid on the back of it. So I think this will be a fine pick.
The other one I have is A.J. Dillon, anytime touchdown. I think that if he does play, obviously he's going to be our premier running back in that game.
No snap count.
It's all crossing your fingers, knocking on wood that he ends up playing. But I do think that if we get in a short yardage situation at the goal line, they're going to have no choice but to just feed him. I know that the Chiefs have a really good front four. I still like this one. I think that he'll score if he does play, and if he plays that, well, I guess I have to hope that he is playing to some capacity, and they're not doing the Aaron Jones thing where they're like, yeah, he's playing, but we're giving him 7 touches, and then that's it.
Huge restriction, yep.
Well, let's move on to the fantasy corner. So the playoffs are about 2 to 3 weeks away, and we need to kind of focus on players that can help us make that run. At this point in the season, we kind of... You know your team, and most leagues have already had the trade deadline happen, but this is kind of where it becomes important to have that bench depth and to be able to interchange some people that have an easier schedule than others.
Right. Yeah, so we'll start off with the quarterback. This is somebody I've mentioned before that, when you get someone like Russell Wilson, spoiler, that's it, he probably wasn't your starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. He probably wasn't your starting quarterback in fantasy a month in. He's probably somebody that you either drafted really late or picked up as table scraps halfway through the season because since Russell Wilson had one bad year but 11 good ones, all of a sudden no one wants him, right? Recency bias is a thing for sure, but the offense didn't look great, so I'll go to that. He's hot right now. 20 touchdowns, 4 picks, on pace for the most rushing involvement since 2020. So we're kind of turning back the clock a little bit for Russ. And he has the easiest remaining schedule among quarterbacks, according to Fantasy Pros. This is a situation we have to look at now. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got a lot of people in this same tier that I'm about to go over, but they have easier schedules. They have weaker oppositions. The game script's favoring it. And Russ is one of them. A 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's taking care of the ball. Now we'll go to the running back, Austin Eckler. Some of you are going to hate this one because he really hasn't performed to his caliber the last, 3 or 4 weeks ever since coming back from injury. He still has the high volume red zone usage. This is still a team that really doesn't have a wide receiver too. Joshua Palmer goes down, Mike Williams goes down, Quentin Johnston is allergic to the football. You have to find another way to get the ball down the field, and Austin Eckler, as long as he's out there, I think is that secondary option. Brandon Ayuk is another one. He's shifted to being that number one guy over Deebo Samuel. Deebo's still kind of used in the run game, but Ayuk is the leader in target share right now, even over George Kittle. And he also has an easier remaining schedule, so that goes hand in hand with somebody like Brock Purdy, if you have him. Last one, Dalton Kincaid. Going to be hard to try and go and get this guy, but again, like Charlie said, if this is someone who you had marinating on the bench and all of a sudden you look over your shoulder and go, oh, he's top 12, this might be a smart start depending on your situation. He's getting more and more targets from Josh Allen as of late. Allen's been leaning on 2 guys more than we expected, Kincaid and Khalil Shakir. So, I mean, I'm feeling better about the former out of those, and he also has an easy remaining schedule. So, yeah, I would roll with those 4 if you can.
Yeah, with Wilson, you're really holding your nose and just kind of making the right decision, even though it doesn't feel right deep down. And then with Eckler, I've always just been shocked at how little they use him in the passing game lately. I was at that Packer game against the Chargers. They hardly used him. And then on that clip that kind of went viral of him running down the sidelines, he wasn't getting any acceleration at all. So I'm a little worried about Austin Eckler. I know that a lot of people would probably make a big deal at the deadline for him to try and get a second running back that works for their team. But yeah, Austin Eckler scares me a bit. Brandon Ayuk, I think that offense is always going to kind of be firing on all cylinders, even with Deebo out. Once Deebo comes back, it might even open up some spots or some receptions for Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, yeah.
And then Dalton Kincaid, that Bills team is really frustrating, but it hasn't been the offense's fault. It hasn't been Josh Allen's fault. And Kincaid's a guy that, like you said, sitting on your bench, if you made it this far with Dalton Kincaid on your team, it's probably now is the time to play him.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people have dropped him by this point. I know that I drafted him, put him on my bench. He's scoring 6 points a game.
Dormant for like 2 months. Yeah.
And finally he's turning it up. So let's move on to the canceled list. So the canceled list, I'm canceling the Chargers.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't blame that.
I'm done. I should have done it sooner. It should almost be just a rule that if your coach is that bad, like this much of an idiot, that you shouldn't be putting your faith in them. I had them against the Ravens last week. I think it was 3.5 when it closed.
Mm-hmm.
They had every chance in the world to cover that game. They were down 10. They go down and score a touchdown. They're down 3. That's all we needed. I was winning. People with Ravens were probably pushing at 3. And then the Zay Flowers touchdown with a minute and a half.
Just
if he goes down,
breaks everything.
If he goes down, it hits.
We're not talking about this right now.
Oh, my gosh.
If he goes down, this conversation doesn't happen.
He didn't need to score.
Nope.
And I get going up 10. Now the Chargers need to score twice. The Chargers weren't going to score at all at that point.
Maybe he bet the spread.
Yeah, right? He might have pulled a Calvin Ridley there. Oh, my gosh.
Had to cover.
Yeah, so I was over it with the Chargers. I think that it's kind of like the Vikings last year. The Vikings last year, every game they played in was a one-score game, and you didn't know which way it was going to go. Similar to the Falcons this year. I'm done with the Falcons. Not fully, but I'll go back to them. If I see the spot last week they played the Saints, I like them in that one.
Big Arthur Smith fans here.
Yeah, right. So yeah, the Chargers I'm done with. I can't do it. I love Justin Herbert. I love that offense. I love Kellen Moore. I love everything about the Chargers. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. They need to restart. Obviously, Herbert's their guy moving forward, but man, he just can't win these games, and he doesn't win it when it's a one-score game.
Yeah, you threw in here, I should have done this sooner. I should have done it a while ago, but I'm so in on Justin Herbert. I'm so in on Austin Eckler. I really think the Chargers in general are just eye candy. They look great on paper, and then you look back and go, why did I bet on this team that's now treading below 500? Mine's going to be the Vikings. Injuries or not, you lost to the Bears.
Yeah.
I mean, people can make the excuse, no Justin Jefferson, no Kirk Cousins. That's not a great situation, but then you look at the run they went on with Joshua Dobbs. Then you look at the fact that he was able to perform 3 days into his career with the Vikings, didn't even know the playbook, was taking his first snaps on the sidelines. This is a temporary. I'm not fully canceling them. They will have a tryout pretty soon once Justin Jefferson comes back in week 14. So actually they have a bye this week. Just forget about them. And then when they're back, we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
but I'm down on them right now.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we're going to go to break, and on the other side, we're breaking down week 13 of the NFL with a couple of picks and touchdown scores on 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam and Daily Dodge TV. Welcome back to Primetime Picks on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. We're going to break down Week 13 of the NFL with a couple picks and touchdown scores. Corey, I'll lead us off.
All right.
I think these picks might be a real disaster. I'm worried about it.
You're going to preface that now.
I'm worried about it. I'm holding my nose at every one of these picks.
This first game's scary.
All of it's bad. I don't like any of the board, really, for the most part. And you know what? Show goes on anyways. We're gonna still do some picks here. I've got the Broncos at Texans. Texans are 3.5-point favorites. Doesn't make any sense to me.
So weird.
Over under 47.5. So what I'm doing with this game is I'm going over that 47.5. 7 of the last 8 games Houston has played against the AFC, or again, the Denver's played against the AFC South have gone over. Maybe that'll work out. I looked at this and I saw that 47.5, it's close to the key number of 49, and it's in between that zone. So I think that it'll actually end up going over and landing on 48, 49.
You're indoors, too.
We're indoors, so the kicking shouldn't be a problem. Both teams are capable of allowing a lot of points. Both teams are capable of scoring a lot of points. In 4 straight games, the Broncos have scored 20 or more. The Texans have scored 30 or more 4 times this year, and a lot of those have been recent. Earlier in the year, I was even talking about going Texans unders. I've completely flipped.
Yeah, offense looks explosive, though, and who would have thought we'd be taking Denver overs? But the offense puts us in that position right now. I mean,
we'll see. I'm holding my nose. That should be fine. For your first pick, we're looking at tonight, Thursday Night Football, Seahawks at the Cowboys. Cowboys are 9-point favorites in that one with a total of 47.5 as well.
Yeah, I caught it at 8.5 or minus 8.5, but it'd be minus 9 right now. Seattle's allowing 230 passing yards a game. That's 11th most in the league. We've seen the secondary get torched over and over. They get in a lot of high-scoring bouts. Wouldn't hate the over in general, but I think on paper the Cowboys, you mentioned this before, they blow teams out that are pretenders. This is a real validity check for the Seahawks. Are you a playoff team, or are you just going to miss the mark? I know they were a first-round exit last year. I think the Cowboys show them they're just going to miss the mark. We were talking before the show today that the Rams are kind of sneaky. I think the Cowboys push the Seahawks out of that last playoff spot. That helps your Packers. I don't think tonight's close at all.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it with the Cowboys. One thing that scares me is just the Niners covering that number late with a field goal or something sad where they're down 10, kick the field goal, onside kick to score a touchdown, and they don't get it. They lose by They lose by 7.
Seahawks keep it close.
Yeah, so I kind of lean going Cowboys first half or first quarter in that one because I think they'll start off being bullies and they'll do that early. Late game, I'm a little nervous. For my second pick, I'm going Niners at Eagles. Eagles are +3 at home, over under 47. So that Eagles +3 at home, they're 10-1 against the Niners, who are also the second best team in the NFC right now. I think a lot of people are going to see that number with the Eagles and jump on it. I'm going the other way. I'm just going with the Niners money line. This is partially me being a hater and me being my Cowboys guy. But also I think that the public's going to be all over the Eagles with that number. And there's a chance that the Eagles still cover the 3, maybe push on the 3.
Right.
It was 2.5 and it moved to 3. I'm just going money line, so I don't have to worry about the points at all. I think the Niners can get it done. I know that they're a little shaky at times. I think they can do it. There's some numbers here that are really bad for my Niners.
Yeah. Holy cow.
So the Niners are 3-8 straight up in their last 11 against the Eagles. Not great. The Niners are 2-9 against the spread in their last 11 against the Eagles. Also not great.
Odds stacked against
But you know what? I don't care. I don't care. They're gonna get it done. Brock Purdy's gonna get it done. That defense is gonna get it done. San Francisco is 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 against the NFC East, so probably beating down on the Cowboys and Commanders.
Right.
Or the Giants and Commanders is where that number comes from.
Helping out a little bit.
And then they're 15-2 straight up in their last 17 in the NFC. So I'm kind of, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see on these.
We're going to throw these to the wind and see what happens.
This is a gut check moment for me. This is a gut check moment for me. Your second game, we're looking at the Browns at the Rams. Rams are 3.5-point favorites with an over-under of 40.
Kind of shocked. I know they get Kyron back, but the Browns defense, top to bottom, has been dominant. I mean, It was never really about the quarterback play. I know some people were coming out making claims that their season was over a couple weeks ago when Deshaun left. Deshaun Watson was having a career worst year again. He really wasn't doing that well. This team has been built on the run. If anything, I thought their season was over when they lost Nick Chubb because that's what this team is built on. Anyway, they played a lot of ugly games, and I think they honestly might even win out right here. It's going to come down to Kyron Williams, who just came back from injury, exploded last week. I know a lot of people were happy about that because Cleveland's secondary is so dominant. They're allowing 140 passing yards a game. That's the lowest mark in the league. I think this game just gets ugly, and I don't know if a Cleveland team that's shutting down a lot of wide receiving cores is going to do anything different against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Kupp's been battling injury in and out the last few weeks. I wouldn't doubt it if the Browns just win this. I really don't know why they're underdogs, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a home game for the Rams. They don't really have a home advantage. So, yeah, but I think the 3.5, it was probably, I didn't see this number when it opened. It was probably 2, and then the Myles Garrett injury is probably what pushed that to 3.5 and past the field goal. If he doesn't play, I could see them having some problems against the rush, but
even so, the secondary has been so dominant, though. That's kind of where my argument is, but I could see it for sure. He's a game wrecker. Even if he's slightly hindered, that could move it a little bit, but yeah.
I'm with you. I like the Browns a lot in that spot. For a touchdown pick, I've got Joe Mixon. This one, I don't love it with Jake Browning being the quarterback, but I think that he's going to have to score. He hasn't scored on the ground in over 2 weeks. He did catch one through the air 2 weeks ago, but I think that they're going to have to lean on him with Jake Browning at quarterback. I think that Mixon wasn't very involved last week. He only had 8 rushes. Yeah. I think they're going to try and lean on him more and use him more, and I think if they get near the goal line, they'll give him a chance.
Yeah.
For your touchdown pick, come on. You've got the Sunday night game, Chiefs at Packers. Packers are 6-point favorites, over under 42.5.
Yeah, we've talked before about how this Chiefs team really is struggling to find their second option outside of Travis Kelce, and I think their true second option has been on the ground. Isaiah Pacheco's been tearing it up this year. Green Bay allows 0.9 rushing touchdowns per game. That's bottom half in the league. We're just seeing a greater focus on the run. It's a 60-40 split. It was a little greater than that for the Chiefs. It's nothing that's going to move mountains, but Isaiah Pacheco is 7th in the NFL in red zone touches, a stat that really contradicts what I did with a player that's not going to be named anymore. But either way, he gets a lot of involvement around the end zone. I think it bodes well here.
Moving on to our parlay, I'll start us off. I've got Tulane minus 3.5 against SMU. I don't understand this line. Tulane should probably be a 7-point favorite in my head. So this might be a total rat, and I'm falling for the trap. It was 3. It was 2.5 earlier than that. Now it's up to 3.5. I might be falling for a trap here, but I mean, Tulane's just way better, so I'm going with them.
Okay.
And then I see you've got a Michigan-Iowa over. And before we dive into the pick, I want to make sure you're aware that in the first half, Iowa's team total is 0.5. They're not the odds makers aren't even sure if they're going to score in the first half.
Wow. I don't think they have to. I think Michigan scores more than 34. Okay. I'd be honest. I know Iowa's built on their defense. Some the heck how. They are 16th in the country. I think it's just to build up this matchup. I think it ends up being a blowout. I know Iowa's coach was coming out saying, it'd be kind of interesting if we won and shook up the college football playoff, which, hot take, even if Iowa wins, I don't think that matters because Michigan comes out and beats Ohio State last week. But I think Michigan scores north of 30, and that doesn't leave Iowa to have to do much. So that's my take there.
All right, so we've got Michigan, Iowa over 34.5, Tulane minus 3.5. Now we're combining a Packers prop into this. Yep. I think for me, if I were to pick one from mine between A.J. Dillon, anytime, and Romeo Doubs over receptions, I'm going to take the over 3.5 receptions. But let's talk about it. You've also got Jaden Reed anytime, which is an interesting pick here.
Only reason I really see Jaden Reed, outside of the fact he's been a really productive receiver, they have him involved in the run, and they kind of have to. We were talking about before, what are different ways you can run the ball? Well, one way to run the ball is screens, another is jet sweeps, and we've seen that with Jaden Reed. Interested to see if LaFleur digs into his bag of tricks in the red zone.
Okay. So do you think we should go Jaden Reed touchdown or Dobbs over 3.5?
I'm going to go Dobbs over 3.5.
Okay.
You talk about the yards of separation. The guy's always getting open. He's a main target. I think there's going to be a reliance on the pass in general, and Dobbs has kind of been at the forefront of that.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully they target Romeo early and often, because if they don't, I will be very crabby on next week's episode. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Primetime Picks on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. Thanks as always for joining us, and good luck this week in Week 13 of the NFL.